Hello and welcome to another episode of Tea with Tanay. Today we'll talk about open source contribution, and how to start doing open source. Okay. And honestly, I have not done a lot of open source work. So I called in the expert, which I might just like few months back I met, and he's none other than Rahul Kadyan. Rahul is IIT Guwahati pass out from 2016 batch, yes. And he is a core contributor of Vue.js. Vue.js is one of the most starred repository on GitHub currently. It's all the developers favorite all across the world, and getting at such a young age becoming a core contributor for such a large repository, it means he has a lot of experience to share, he has a lot of stories to tell, and that's what Rahul will tell us. We have taken questions from Instagram, we have taken questions from Twitter, and we have compiled all of those questions to ask to Rahul. So Rahul, welcome to the show. Say hi to everyone and introduce yourself once more.
Hey, hello everyone. Like Tanay already introduced, but yeah, I'm Rahul. I contribute to Vue.js and all the Vue ecosystem. Like I actually run a couple of meetups and small conferences also. So yeah, pretty much.
So you recently did that Vue BLR conference, right?
Yeah, so Vue BLR is a meetup I run in the local area. It's a monthly meetup, and I run a small conference by AwesomeCon. So it's a kind of an inclusive conference. So last edition's concept was like everyone has to speak, so every attendee was a speaker also. So yeah,
Wow. That is amazing. And what happened? There was a Vue Day. When is Vue Day happening?
View Day happened just this weekend. It was on 30th of August.
Awesome.
It was first large scale Vue conference in India, and the event was really good.
For people who don't know what Vue is, Rahul, would you give us a small introduction?
Yeah, so Vue is a front end framework to build websites. Like
Mhm.
something like if you work with jQuery, and like jQuery helped you to add reactivity to your applications, but there are some problems with, like, jQuery was really good, but there are some problems with it. Like as your application grew, it became very difficult to manage. Like something a term coined at that point in time called spaghetti code. So
Hmm.
jQuery kind of converted everything into a spaghetti code, and then React came in with a component-based architecture and composing your UI with smaller chunks. And at the same time, Angular did also come in with similar kind of concepts, and Vue tried to find a balance between the two ecosystems. So Vue is a front-end framework that scales with your project. It can work with a very small application, like you can replace it with jQuery, or you can replace it with Angular also. Like it scales with your application. So we call it a progressive framework because it progresses with the scale of your application and uh, can provide can provide a good base to build reactive applications.
Awesome. I have not used Vue, to be honest, Rahul, but I have heard only good things about it. Like there's a lot of developer love, especially people who struggle with React, because getting started with React is a big headache, even with Create React app. But Vue, it seems it's very easy, it's very natural. People who know HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, they know where to write what code. So there's no twisting your mind around a new framework kind of thing. Am I
Yeah,
saying this right?
it's pretty much correct. Like Vue builds on well-known technology, like we already know HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and Vue builds upon those basic technologies to provide you the kind of composition as architecture you get in React. It kind of mix of both worlds, and it's easy to get started because you don't need to learn everything to get started. With just the basic intro can get you very productive and can help you build interactivity on your pages.
I heard Vue is very famous in China and Asian markets on the other side of the world, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Some of the biggies there are using Vue for for
Yeah,
their for their projects, isn't it?
yeah.
So
Adoption kind of started from there, and then it spread out across Europe, and now in US, and now dozens of companies in India are also using Vue. So
why
it's
do you
growing.
think, Rahul, it's more famous in Asia or in China region? What?
Uh, so when Evan started this project, it kind of picked up in Chinese community, and the community basically created good documentation around it, and like uh, community kind of adopted it and it picked up there. And then when documentation started improving and other people like initially Laravel showed interest in Vue and they added it to their default template, and
Oh,
from there people started to pick Vue, and when people started contributing, documentation improved. And after a good like documentation kind of get really good and people started to learning Vue.js. Like we still got like Vue has the best documentation compared to all the front end frameworks, and
no,
it's
no,
kind of gold standard if you are if you are going to create documentation, like it is kind of gold standard.
no, I understand. I have heard good things about documentation, especially the one in Chinese, right? And and then Vue gets a lot of love from folks who are there in US as well, like Sean Larkin is a strong proponent of Vue. Same with
Hmm.
Sarah Dressner. They are like I think they are also core contributor to Vue code. Some of them.
Yeah, Sarah is quoting
Sarah
you,
is there.
and Son helps a lot. Like Vue has been adopting all the latest technology like code splitting and everything. As like Vue was pretty early adopter of all those features, and
Oh,
we work closely with Webpack. So yeah,
that's why.
yeah.
Good. Thank God you have answered all of this because I don't know anyone else who is working on Vue apart from you. It's like a poetry, right? Like working on Vue apart from you. But thing is, everyone I know, mostly in India in Bangalore, like the thing which you said in that conference also where we were together, is in Bangalore, it's only about React. It's not like you won't get Vue developers a lot. But seriously, I feel, and recently when I was talking to startup crowd, I gave a talk in bar event about how to get your startup started. My
Mhm.
main thing was if you want to build a small, like if you have a small team, do not go behind React because it's too complicated to even get it running. Go with Vue and you would get your things very fast. And this is the reason I think one of the like few of the PHP developers whom I know they swear about Vue, like they think Vue is really nice because I think it's very easy for them to get into because now I know because Laravel is it right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because Laravel started supporting it early. And I never had like I had all these pieces of information here and there, but I never had these pieces connected. So thank you, man. Thank you for helping me with this. Uh, so how did your journey start, dude? How did you get into Vue?
So let's start with like how did I get into open source? So
Okay.
uh, I I joined my college as chemistry majors, but I was interested in computers a lot. So I
Okay.
started looking like what can I do, and I landed on this thing called Google Summer of Code.
Mm-hmm.
So it is an kind of you can call it an open source festival, like where some projects participate, and some students participate to basically contribute to this open source projects. And Google and a couple of companies support this initiative, and they actually pay you kind of stipend to work on this open source project. So this is where I started. Like I source Google Summer of Code 2014, I guess. 2014 or 2013. I don't exactly remember it. So I worked on an open source project from an organization called INCF. So they're working in some neurological. They were trying to store some neurological data on mobile devices. So it was it was new. It was everything. Everything was kind of new. I had to work on Android application. I never worked on Android application. So this program has kind of like a period where you have to try to contribute, and if the maintainers see like you are contributing well, then you get become part of this program, and then they pay you the stipend and all.
Oh,
So like before being part of the program, you have to show some interest and contribute to the project. So
okay.
during that time I looked at a couple of projects. I looked at Norm, I looked at Firefox, and I looked at INCF, and I liked it. Like the INCF project was on app and workshop going in. So I attended that workshop and started to contribute to this project. And yeah, so this was kind of 2.5 months, like the time period of this project, or 2.5 months. I worked on this thing. I really liked it, and after that, like I like I kind of broke the barrier to open source. Like after this, I picked a couple of more projects. I contributed to some parts of Laravel, some parts of jQuery, built some plugins, and yeah, I started there.
So you did what? Android, PHP, and JavaScript, and you did all of this even though you were a chemical student.
Yeah, yeah, I was kind of exploring everything, and in the meantime, like whatever I reading, whatever I trying to learn, I was trying to build also. Like so, means whatever I knew could be applied in some places. I could build small solutions, small plugins, and like whatever I was building, I was publishing it on GitHub.
So tell me, Rahul. So you see Laravel or you see jQuery or whatever, wherever you worked. How did you get like? What do you think? How do you get into getting your code checked in? Like one thing is definitely
Yeah,
you have to start somewhere, right? Like
yeah.
you can learn the language, but there's another thing where you would go and put a PR saying that this is what I want to get in. So how did you get that in?
So journey starts with uses. Like you start using some of the tools,
Mm-hmm.
and none of the tools are perfect. They have something like they are broken at some point of time. So
True.
whenever I used to get an error message, like and the thing should be like was expected to work, but it didn't work. So it threw some error messages. So I started with those error messages. I picked those error messages. I searched those error message strings in the source code and try to find like what is happening around that error message and kind of backtrack like how like backtrace the error like how why this thing is happening. I'm doing something wrong or this tool is doing something wrong. Like basically the initial journey is to find like is it really an issue or it's something you are doing is wrong. So like sometimes it was like my mistake, sometimes the tool was broken. So whenever I could find a tool was broken, I started raising issues like this thing I'm trying to do this but it's failing for me. And open source community is kind of always busy. Like they take time to fix
Yeah.
all those issues. But when you are learning things, you want everything to fast pace. Like this should work right now. So yeah, I in starting I used to wait for the maintainer to fix, but eventually I started forking their projects and fixing those issues. And when it used to work for me, I started creating pull requests as well.
So basically, you took the motto "fix your own problems"
Yeah.
and just went into open source. Just dove into it, right?
Yeah, like if you start looking at like which project I have to contribute and which what feature I have to contribute, it becomes very difficult. Like too much information you have to know upfront. But
Mm.
if you are working with something and you find some holes there, it's easier to fill those holes.
And that's true. Even some of the contributions which I have made happened like this only. I was working on something, say Apollo, I was working on
Mm.
in my office, and I saw there the documentation was broken. First thing, like it was saying something, it was doing something else. So I went
Yeah.
into the source code and I said, hey, we can fix the documentation. And that was just like the first PR which went in, went in, saying that here is the broken documentation. One thing which I think, people um, do as a mistake is they think documentation is not code. Like you won't be respected if you are fixing documentation. But
Uh,
documentation is very, very, very important. It
yeah,
shows
like
that you understand that project, that code really well. So
yeah.
that's also a good starting point if someone wants to start. Like just go through the documentation, see whether the software behaves as you do as it says. Also,
Mm.
I like your points about, and this actually I was reading a blog around 2 3 years back, and the same thing was reiterated there. Like, don't go and fix the famous project. Fix the things which you are using and
Yeah.
whatever problems you have. So that's how you got into all of this. That's awesome to share.
Mm.
One question which always arises, Rahul, and like I have few thoughts, but I want your answers as well. Is why to do open source? Open source is free. It's some people think of open source as free labor.
Mm.
Like most of the companies, even companies like Microsoft and Facebook and all of these, like Facebook at least contributes a lot. Uh,
Mm.
there are many companies, say Microsoft, say Flipkart, these companies which are making a lot of money, and they are making a lot of money on open source projects, right?
Mm. Yeah.
And still they are not putting in that much effort, and you are putting that effort in your free time, like whatever time you get after your work or after your college, even in college,
Mm.
right? So tell me, what are your thoughts around this? Is open source free labor, or you think it's a good thing to do because of X or Y reasons when you are a student? And also, we'll touch upon after this, like when you're working, how to do all of it. Go ahead. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts?
Yeah, like first of all, it's a really sad thing. Like big companies using open source, they don't contribute neither monetarily with time or with contributions. Like a lot of companies do contribute, but a majority of them are not doing that. So it's like it's the state of our broken software. But yeah, that's there. But the way I see open source is like it's an opportunity to learn. Like if I do whatever I do at my work, I'm limited to a particular scope, and I cannot learn anything outside of the scope. But when I'm fiddling at my home, I'm trying to do something, and I land up with new tools, and I can contribute to those tools. I'm and like in every step, I'm learning something new. So like for me, it's a learning experience. Like every time I contribute, I learn something new. Like yeah, contribution aside, like when I'm looking at issues, I learn something new every time. People present different kind of problems, different kind of scenarios. People like like I get to know so many kind of situations, so I can use those situations, those scenarios at work as well, or in some other project. So kind of knowledge is always expanding when you're working on a number of tools in open source.
At the same time, you do spend a lot of time on it even after job, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of become my hobby now. Like I spend a lot of time reading other people's code. Yeah, I have been to so many GitHub repositories just to browse like how is doing this thing.
Oh.
Look, yeah, like just to kind of like how people read books, I read code. I jump into some random repository like, and read through their code. I actually have subscribed on GitHub's trending projects. So I every day I get a list of 10 projects which are kind of trending today. And whenever I find something interesting, I go into and look into their source code, look into the problem what they're trying to do. Like,
How do you subscribe
I,
to that, Rahul?
so you can go to trending page and you can there's a subscribe button, I guess there.
Oh.
Then GitHub will start sending you weekly or daily emails. Like you can schedule that frequency.
Mm-hmm.
So um, like GitHub trending page maintains a list of like weekly, monthly, and all time trending projects. So you can subscribe to them. Either you can go to that page or you can subscribe and you'll get an email.
I'm taking a tangent here, Rahul, from the initial topic. But what
Yeah.
you said, actually, you read code like people read books. That was amazing line. At the same time, I want to ask you, sometimes, and this happens even with me, I think this happens with a lot of people, is when you go into a repository, you don't know where to start from, like
Hmm.
how the code is progressing. So how do you do that?
Hmm.
Like how do you understand, how do you start looking at the code and then start understanding what is it is doing? What's your process there?
Yeah. So I have kind of depending upon the case, I have two approaches. Let's say
Mm-hmm.
I'm working with this tool and this tool is broken. I'm trying to fix this or I'm trying to add new feature. So
Hmm.
I'll start looking the same approach I told earlier. Like what is the error you are getting? Try to find that error string and find to look the code around that part. So that approach works when you are already using a tool and trying to fix some bugs. Another approach is like when you are trying to explore a new project. So
Mm-hmm.
in that scenario, I start with entry files. Let's say it's an npm project. So there would be a main file from where from where the program enters. So yeah, I enter from that file and basically propagate through the source code as if I'm the interpreter and going to the code line by line. Similar kind of approach for every kind of project. Like there's always an entry file and you can propagate through it.
Through it. So do you clone it on your machine and then start doing it, or you just do it on GitHub directly?
Earlier I used to clone it and do on my machine. Now GitHub is really good in basically click jumps and all those things. So
Yeah,
you
they
can
came up
pretty
with
much,
that beta thing. It's still in beta, right?
yeah,
Click jump.
yeah,
Yeah. Because in our, like in Microsoft, we have VSTS for code and all, so we can jump from there. But it was missing in GitHub. I used to get very
yeah,
frustrated with GitHub, so I used to clone it just to get that jump. So
yeah.
great man.
Now they have click jumps, so you can do it online also. But you can clone also. So there's a binary called hub.
Mm-hmm.
It's available on hub.github.com or .io. I don't remember. So from there you can just hub clone and just username and repository. You don't have to type the full path and all. So it clones the project for you.
Oh,
So yeah, like that hub binary is kind of an extension of get binary. It
mm-hmm.
allows you to look at all the pull requests and basically you can manage your project with that binary. So I use that
That's
binary.
that's another cool tip, man. I'll add it to the show notes. Hub.github.io, right? I'll do that.
Let me just check quickly.
We'll check it out later. It's okay. I'll add it to the notes. So
It's
another thing,
hub.github.com. Yeah.
hub.github.com. Cool, man. So another thing which I wanted to ask you is, and coming back to the question again, as a student, you learned a lot from your open source, right? And
Yeah.
did it help you to get a job as well?
It kind of did help. Like my majors was chemistry and I'm working in computer science. So everything I learned is through either open source or basically learning online.
Oh, so you are working for Myntra, right?
Yeah.
Is this the first company which you joined?
Uh, Not exactly. So before this, I hoped couple of startups like 2 weeks, 1 month, 3 months,
Okay.
something like this, and then I joined Myntra.
Okay. So your first interview, which went in, I think, in college, right?
Uh, yeah.
Was there a mention about your open source work? When did you become the Vue.js contributor, like the core contributor?
Kind of like mid fourth year.
Mid fourth year.
Yeah.
Oh, so it.
So yeah, like answering to the question, I didn't interview any company in my college. Like I was trying, I was working on some small idea for a startup, and I skipped my
Placements.
placements and everything. Yeah.
Wow.
So I spent a year on that idea, and when it like didn't work out, then I started looking for a job and joined Myntra.
Oh, good. Nice, man. That's nice. I have some questions from my followers on Instagram,
Hmm.
and one of the question which I think is very useful is how do you learn to use GitHub? Like if someone is very new to GitHub,
Hmm.
have some tips or tricks there, like if they want to start using GitHub, where to learn or what to do.
Yeah. So like one of the major thing when you are trying to contribute is the PR workflow.
Mm-hmm.
But you would be working with a command line tool or some IDE that can do all the code pushing and everything. So GitHub UI is pretty straightforward. It has all the options like create a pull request and all those. But to know about the workflow, you can use an interactive tool. It's called try.github.io. GitHub
Okay.
built it.
Mm-hmm.
So it is kind of an interactive tool where it walks you through all the steps, like how to commit code, how to create a pull request, how to create a branch, and all those things. So it is a really good tool. I use this thing quite like when I was trying open source. I use this thing. It's quite old and quite stable tool.
Oh,
And
nice.
I always share this tool with everyone who asks like how to use Git.
You're like a bag full of tricks, man. You have so many tricks around open source. I'm seriously enjoying this talk because it's there are so many things which even I didn't know. I mean, apart from people who are just entering 7 years into industry, even I didn't know there's a try.github.io or a hub.github.com. These are good things, man. One question which again comes in, though we have kind of answered it, but this keeps coming up is like, do you need in-depth knowledge when you want to contribute to a project online? Like,
Like yeah, the way I see, like there's no limit to depth. So if you think like I'll learn everything in depth and then I'll contribute, so you won't ever reach there. So
mm-hmm,
the way I see, like whatever I'm learning, I try to contribute to that. So like a couple of months back, I was trying to learn Kubernetes.
okay.
So thought like it would be nice. Let's speak up at a local Kubernetes meetup. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know anything. I submitted a talk there, and then I started learning about it. So like If you really want to do something, it's like create it as a challenge for you. Something like if you try to wait to learn everything in depth, you won't be able to do almost anything.
But what's
So
the sweet spot according to you?
uh, uh, learn a little bit of basics so that let's say you want to contribute to a Python project, so you should know like you should understand the code written in Python, not everything, but 80% of the code given any piece of code, 80% you should understand like what is the syntax, and if you understand that, then it like depending on use case, you can learn whatever is required for a particular project.
So basically, as soon as you understand the constructs of the language, you are ready to
Yeah.
go and contribute to open source projects.
Yes, pretty much yes.
Pretty much, yes.
And humans like you don't even need to understand the language also. Let's say you are learning Vue and you are reading Vue documentation,
Mm-hmm.
and you find there's some grammatical issue in documentation. You can contribute to that. Like
True.
finding errors or issues in a documentation is the hardest task. Like there are so many eyes looking at those pages and they have been already refined. And if you find a small issue, if you find a grammatical mistake or you find a syntax error, like that means like you are paying a lot more attention than your other people there on that page. So if you find something in documentation, fix that. That's the most difficult task you can do.
Wow. That's another way of putting why fixing documentation has such great value. Great, man. I have one more question and this question is about, yeah, selection of project. I think this also we have covered, right? How to select a
Yeah, yeah.
project is
Yeah,
basically
like work
the
on what you
problems which
are
you are facing.
already facing. But I few more things. Like if you think any of the project you are working on is already stable and you can't find anything, so October is coming up, and GitHub DigitalOcean hosts this thing called Hacktoberfest. So it's some kind of open source festival where you can contribute to some of the projects. I guess, hold on a second. I guess. Sure. Yeah. Mm,
Yes.
So yeah, so Hacktoberfest starts from 1st of October, and you can contribute to open source projects. And DigitalOcean will give you goodies if you contribute. Like if you raise a pull request or if you pull request is merged, they'll send you some goodies. So that's also a good motivation to start. And the website is hacktoberfest.digitalocean.com, and they list down a couple of like hundreds of projects which you can contribute to, and also you can search on GitHub, like all the issues would be, all the repositories would be labeled with Hacktoberfest, and all the issues would be labeled with good fest issue. So you can search for like so good fest issues is a tag which GitHub uses uh, to basically call out for new contributors, and these kind of issues kind of reserved for new contributors. No such rule, but yeah, like that's how community works. Like this kind of issues are reserved for new contributors, so that new people can get started with these. And all the projects that participate in Hacktoberfest, they basically label their low hanging fruits as good fest issues, and you can start from there.
Yeah, I mean, you can search via tags.
Yeah,
There is last year when people, I think a lot of people participated in Hacktoberfest. Even for my repository, a lot of people contributed because I tagged some of the issues as Hacktoberfest. So there
yeah,
was a universal query which was running, and people were getting Hacktoberfest related issues from there. And
yeah,
I think 50,000 t-shirts were given last year by
yeah,
DigitalOcean for people
yeah.
who contributed. So yeah. So, and it was very easy. It was 5 PRs. Your 5 PRs should get merged, and you will get a T-shirt. A lot of people got T-shirt here as well in Microsoft. So that is another good point, which actually I have missed, that in October is coming, and so I should release this episode before October so that people are ready with Hacktoberfest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that. That's a good point, and good first issue. So basically, either you face a problem, or you go and search Hacktoberfest or search good for issues. good
Yeah.
first issues, sorry, and all these three things will help you get into a project. That is good, man. uh, One another thing which I wanted to ask is, Rahul, the idea around open source maybe is that you have to figure things out yourself, and suppose someone is listening to us from past 30 minutes, it is also coming out like you go and you look and you learn. But what if you need help? Where do you go and find help if you are stuck somewhere, if you want to understand something? Where is the social aspect of this entire open source thing?
So everything in open starts with an issue, and GitHub issues has conversations over it. Like there's a comment thread where people discuss about that issue. Uh, but the scope of all the issues are about that particular problem which is captured in that issue. If you want to discuss something generic, something is which is wider, broader in scope. So every project kind of have their own communication channel. Like we are using Discord. Uh, for smaller project, I have been using Gitter. So there is a communication channel, either a forum or a chat or something where you can discuss about these in detail. Plus, there are meetups. Like I run View Meetup in Bangalore. So if you are stuck at some problem, you can go to some meetup, meet other people who are working. Like you can find similar minded people in meetups and discuss your problems with them, discuss what you are trying to do, and if you are stuck, they can help.
Cool. So be part of the community either on GitHub or on one of these channels, or go
Yeah.
and physically do open source there,
Yeah.
like in one of these meetups. That's
Hmm.
that's good idea, dude. That's
A
nice.
couple of meetups do this thing. Like a couple of meetups, I know some in Bangalore. So they meet for open source contribution sprints during Hacktoberfest. So all the people who are trying to participate in Hacktoberfest get in a room and they try to solve issues, help each other, and basically get the goodies.
Are you planning to do something like that?
So we have a meetup in October. So we don't have dates yet, but we will try to have something similar.
So Rahul, someone wants to talk to you around this or follow you or ask you for your help. How would they reach you?
Best is Twitter.
Best is
Uh,
okay.
yeah. So my Twitter handle is ZNCK0. Yeah.
I'll
So
put that in the show notes again.
yeah.
So I'll put that. And Twitter is the best place. You do answer to DMs, right?
Yeah. I answer to DMs and my DMs are open.
That's cool. That's cool. Thank you, Rahul. Is there anything which you want us to cover more around open source, which I have not asked, or you want to give some tips around it? Please go ahead.
Yeah. This is more like if you're working at a company and you are using some open source tool, make it clear to your company that somebody is working on this thing. And if the tool has an open collective or some way of basically supporting that tool, uh, try to push your company to contribute to that open collective or the Patreon or whatever they are using, so that you can sponsor that tool, so that the tool can improve. And also it can, in like small contributors can improve lifestyle of people who are contributing to that project, and basically sustainability of that project can also be improved by this thing. So try to make your company basically contribute to open source projects monetarily.
That makes a lot of sense. We should all do it. At least we should push for it
Yeah.
and see what happens, what not happens. And I think it's a good thing for the company also, like even for startups and all, if they say that we are supporting these projects, we are open collective
Yeah.
supporting these projects, or Patreon support this project. It would be a good hiring pitch, if you know what I mean. It would be a good hiring pitch for
Yeah.
the company as well, that we support open source, because
Yeah.
developers want to do open source or work on open source technologies more. Great message, Rahul. Thank you for joining us. It was a, it was a lot of fun talking about all the tips and tricks which you had and talking about open source. I hope you had fun too. Say bye.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Bye.